Hello, so let's do a video and look at another one of the key fundamental claims of ancient lost high technology. I'm going to be referencing Brian Foster, especially because there is a rather diverse community, but he is an important leader in this community, and he speaks often about baalbek. I also put links in the description to other videos where I've talked about the weights, for instance, and shown that this narrative in regards to cannot be lifted, cannot be, well, we'll get to cutting, but cannot be lifted. This has just been smashed out of the water. It is thoroughly ridiculous. But in regards to these particular stones, now we're focusing on these ones and the claims made into them in regards to the marks there. Now they've been referred to as proof of ancient high technology or unexplainable claw marks. So we'll examine that, but this is a photo again of baalbek. If you're familiar, you know, he's called these unexplained evidence of lost high technology and even described them as claw-like marks. But let's look at another example of this amazing lost high technology in regards to quarry marks. We see exactly the same types of quarry marks here. These photos that I'll be showing are all from the same site. And you might be surprised to find the location of these particular unexplainable claw marks. I would just call them standard quarry marks. They can be found in pretty much any quarry across time, across the world. But so there we see, where is this magic site? Well, firstly, let's do a comparison. So the top left corner, we can see those tool marks at baalbek, and bottom right corner, we can see the mysterious lost ancient high technology. And then we need to ask the question, well, where is this particular site? Where is this example of amazing lost high technology claw marks, unexplainable claw marks? Well, you're in for a surprise because it's... Here we are at Google Earth, and we focus down on Sydney. I want to show you the precise location of this evidence of ancient lost high technology / claw marks, unexplainable claw mark. Well, well, anyway, so there we see from the top, you can see, well, that's the Harbour Bridge. You can see the silhouette and that white peninsula there. It's the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Where are those mysterious claw marks? Well, they're on Argyle Street in the Rocks here in Sydney. They're part of what's called the Argyle Cut. This is some of the first quarrying, some of the first stone masonry here in the very early days of settlement here in Sydney. And there we see the Google Earth view. So you can check this right next to the Argyle Stair. That's where I'm showing. The Argyle Stair, like if you're a local, you would know how that leads up to the Rocks. If you want to walk across the Harbour Bridge, you take the Argyle Stairs up to the Rocks, and you're right at the main staircase to do the walk across the bridge, not across the arches, just the standard walk across. But so where we see these people and these cars parked, there we have the photo of that particular place. So Argyle Street, the Argyle Cut, and we'll get to some more details in regards to Mohs hardness skull and some of these other features. Okay, lost ancient high technology tool marks. Well, here we are. We're just next to the Argyle Stair here in the Rocks in Sydney, and well, across the ancient world and across up until the modern era, you'll see these same tool marks again. This is Sydney, Australia. This is not baalbek. This is not Petra. This is not any other places. This is just the standard tool markings. And if you pay attention to the lines, imagine using a pick and you're swinging on a wall. What shape are you gonna cut out? You're gonna cut out this shape because this follows the natural human forms. This is the reason for these apparently unexplainable lost high technology markings. They can be found literally everywhere across time, across the world. But if you conveniently ignore these and ignore all these facts, don't show the modern equivalents, and then just say, oh, look at this, impossible, never replicated. Well, it's literally all over the world, all over time. And shame on those who would use these examples and then suppress history and suppress the truth to promote their nonsense ideas, because it's just fake. As long as you don't show all these other things and attach mystical, magical elements to it and say some, lost civilization, lost aliens or something, well, that sounds great. But if you show a comparison, if you actually open your eyes, you look at the granite stonework that was done prior to modern tools, you look at the even conundrum and other sculptures made of these apparently impossible to work without modern equipment tools, these types of tool marks everywhere, all over the place. It is, well, it is nonsense. It really is a nonsense, and it's actually shameful that these these people say that, and then charge people thousands of dollars to go on a tour to point them at stuff that you could find, well, just here in Sydney. How do they get away with it? I'm just using a camera, just taking a screenshot off the screen. Now I just want to illustrate, just to set and sort this out once and for all. This is a photo from the site of this researcher who most commonly pushes this idea and literally calls these unexplainable claw marks. I'm not putting words, this is just repeated what he says. He repeats that these are evidence of lost high technology. Okay, we'll come back to the square holes in a moment, but a square hole is a square hole. It's no mystery, really. But what we want to have is look at these tool marks, because we can use this person, so I'm assuming to say 5 foot. We can hold that to that scale, and we can see that, for instance, the marks start here, and then they start again. And then we see, again, following around. So these measurements are well within human proportions, what a mason would be working with. Now, as we just saw, even in Sydney, lost ancient high technology of the rocks, we see exactly the same marks. I'll show examples. We have it all over the ancient world. It's all over the modern world. This is no mystery, and supposed expert in masonry and tools, who makes claims and poo-poos other people, and that's an important point. He poo-poos other people. So, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so we have these marks. Now, okay, pardon the demonstration, but I just want to illustrate the point that these are these are easily explained. This would be a pick. Before you go, but limestone, sandstone, steel, we'll get to that later, because that's to do, again, this same researcher references Mohs scale. Carbon is 0.5 on Mohs scale, diamond is 10 on Mohs scale. Diamond and carbon, it's the same thing. The technical things of Mohs scale just makes this ridiculous. But again, just to explain these curved marks, anyone using, whether it's axe, a pick, your first stroke is going to come down, and your first stroke, the handle is going to be vertical, and the point will come in this way. Now, the rest of it is just, human anatomy. That's your power stroke, you come down. As you come down, this chisel, or the pick, is going to get more and more horizontal. So if I was just to trace that down, you see exactly the same curve here is just the basics of using a pick, a hoe, a mattock. Your first stroke, power one, is going to come in and it's going to be vertical. The further you go down, the more and more this is going to angle until the chisel or the pick, until your lowest power strokes are going to be at a very steep angle. Vertical, essentially, to horizontal. Vertical to horizontal. This is the form of the human body. This is why the Masons did that. Now, why would they do that? Another reason is, as you cut a trench, even if it's only an inch deep, then you have a section in between the trench, at which point you can bring your pick in sideways, and that whole portion is going to fall off. That's just the way things work. It's the way things have been done. It's the way Masons did it here in Australia. It's the way Masons did it everywhere back to the ancient world. And we see these quarry marks in modern quarries, pre-diamond, pre-modern equipment. When I say modern, I mean basically pre-World War I. And we see this in ancient, using the same stones as well. These marks are not a mystery. They're not claw marks. These are standard quarry mason marks. And I must just insist on, and it could be something else. All right, let's argue. Look, but when the presentations, when they call these unexplained claw marks evidence of lost high technology, sorry, but no, this is now objective untruth, because, well, the researchers should explain that and show this if they have that knowledge. So either they have the knowledge and they're not sharing it to protect their particular agenda, or they don't have the knowledge, in which case they have no business commenting on quarry techniques or anything else. They're really left in a bad situation, and there is no extracting yourself from this. Now, but again, in the end, these are just square holes. But these marks, we see from the size, if you could find ones that are 20 feet long, you know, that taller, and they go all the way down, then I'd say, okay, let's examine it. But all the ones that I've seen and the ones that they embrace, we see a human form matching the sizing and spacing of those. Now, I'm presuming she's average. I would say just by the look of it, she looks a little bit below average height, so let's say 5 foot. But either way, including the feet, this is all within dimensions. It's not a mystery. It's not a mystery at all. So again, just use a tool, use a pick, and you have, that's the way the human body works, those curves work. And that's the example of it, and we see it, as I just showed you with the video, here in the rocks in Sydney, in the middle of the bloody city of Sydney. And again, all over the ancient world. And I would just say, anyone who says these are unexplainable ancient claw marks, you have no business talking about masonry. You really, really don't. And at least you have no business criticising other people and saying that they've got some sort of brain block or whatever, because this is just standard quarrying technique, modern and ancient. So here we see again, we're returning to the stones there just outside, just beneath the Temple of Jupiter, right next to the Temple of Bacchus there in Baalbek. We see these ancient, mysterious, unexplained claw marks, evidence of lost high technology. And we see the exactly same lost high technology here in Sydney, Australia, in the Argyle Cut. Now, here are some other examples. The literature, the study of ancient quarrying and stonemason techniques is absolutely full of this. There is no excuse for a researcher to say they do not know or not include it and make those claims. I just call BS. I call suppression of history, which is an accusation which is often thrown by this particular group at anyone who doesn't agree with them. They're suppressing history. No, you're suppressing history. Pregnant mother stone, we see those same marks there underneath. We can find them there in ancient Egypt as well. It just is a fact that this is a constant throughout all of history. That is just an undisputable fact, but my spidey senses are tingling because I hear this same meme over and over again. So let's just deal with that and get that out of the way. But the stone here in Sydney, the Sydney sandstone, is sandstone, and they had iron steel tools, something Mohs hardness scale. Typical copy-paste response. I've dealt with it in comments, but let's just do it again in the video. This is just an image from the beach here in Sydney, down at Coogee, Sydney sandstone. We just Google, do it with really primary school research. We can find the hardness of various stones. Sandstone is 6 to 7 on Mohs hardness scale. Granite is 6 to 7 on Mohs hardness scale, and natural quartz or quartzite is about 7 to 7.
We have sculptures such as this one coming up, which is made out of quartzite, and quartzite cannot be carved with the bronze chisels of the dynastic Egyptian period. Therefore, we have no choice but to conclude that it was carved by an older civilization long before the existence of the dynastic Egyptians.
And this once again shows you the artwork of the Romans. You see the fact that you have fluting, you have swastika designs. The Romans were very big, just like the dynastic Egyptians were, in terms of surface artwork. But for the megalithic workers, no art whatsoever. Simply great scale, flat surfaces, monumental work. And again, just to emphasize the fine work of the Romans in limestone, which is relatively soft. And in contrast, the ancient cutting marks in granite. To emphasize hardness, limestone is about 3 to 3.5 in hardness out of 10, with 10 being diamond, and granite is 7 out of 10. So the only technology we know of that can cut granite efficiently is diamond technology.
This is an image which I've seen, and this has been referenced again by many other channels, repeating the claims by Brian Foster, and Mohs hardness scale is used as an example. I just, again, pure BS, because a knife or a glass plate, a window glass is equivalent in Mohs hardness to a steel blade or cutlery. The Egyptians, Babylonians were using crushed quartz to make their glass back in those time. Quartz, again, about 7, so quartzite. Other examples using copper chisels. You can absolutely cut all sorts of stone with copper. If anyone tells you otherwise, rubbish, absolute rubbish. Mohs hardness scale should never be used as a tool to say what stone can work another stone. It's just so far off, because, for instance, softer tools on Mohs hardness scale, such as bronze or steel or copper, hit a diamond, which is at the top of Mohs hardness scale, hit a diamond with any sort of softer tool, whether it be steel, bronze or copper, you're going to smash the diamond. Glass is harder than copper, therefore glass would be a better tool for working, but you can smash glass, you can smash diamonds, you can smash granite with essentially any metal, because that's the nature of these materials. They shatter. Now when it comes to sandstone, sandstone is actually incredibly hard on Mohs hardness scale. The sandstone, or the sarsen stone, it's a type of sandstone at Stonehenge, is very hard, difficult to work, but there are other sandstones which are very soft and they will break apart in your hand. Diamonds are the top of Mohs scale. They're 10. They're used as the cornerstone, the mark of this. But well, diamond is 10 on Mohs hardness scale, is where carbon is only 0.5 on Mohs scale. Both carbon and copper are elements in these, but that's a finer point. But so carbon is 0.5, essentially at the very bottom of Mohs hardness scale, and diamond is 10 at the very top of Mohs hardness scale. Bit of a problem here, because diamonds are pure carbon. So using Mohs hardness scale again this way is just...
And again, just to emphasize the fine work of the Romans in limestone, which is relatively soft. And in contrast, the ancient cutting marks in granite. To emphasize hardness, limestone is about 3 to 3.5 in hardness out of 10, with 10 being diamond, and granite is 7 out of 10. So the only technology we know of that can cut granite efficiently is diamond technology.
That does not make sense.
So again, just to emphasize, if you look into how Mohs hardness scale is used, how it's used on the periodic table as opposed to minerals and other conglomerations, mixtures, compounds, etc., complete misuse of Mohs hardness scale. Just wrong. So to review these unexplained evidence of lost high technology tool marks at Baalbek is, well, it's not only a nonsense, I think it's, I would go as far as to say it is a suppression of history with a certain agenda to dumb people down. Because given the years and the efforts, if you're charging people roughly $4,000 to go on a tour, you better know your business, mate. I'm calling you out. I'm calling you a fraud. I would advise anyone to not invest the money to go on a tour with Hidden Inca Tours, because you're going to be bamboozled with rubbish. Okay, so at this point, not only Brian Foster, these other channels, I'm calling you out. I challenge you. Get out of your echo chamber where everyone agrees with one another and you all support one another, and it's all this big kumbaya mutual masturbation society. I'm calling you out. So either in your presentations you present this other information and get it correct, and include the contrapoints, the counterpoints, or again, what I'm calling you out as a cult, and that's what I think this is. This is essentially a cult. Outside views are either dismissed as an academic. They're quackademics. They're suppressing information. They're suppressing me. Help! I'm being suppressed. Even though YouTube heavily promotes me, I have hundreds of thousands or millions of views, but I'm being suppressed. Yes, I call BS on that as well, mate. That's just. But anyway, I've seen these live streams where, again, Mutual Masturbation Society. If you'd like to discuss this and have someone present information, actually present information rather than this wank fest, well, anytime, mate, anytime. In some soon-to-be released videos, I'll be looking at the impossible core hole rubbish that they talk about in regards to drilling hard stones such as granite with copper, and the impossible to cut stone with copper tools BS, which again, demonstrably untrue. Any researcher worth his salt should know this, and to not include it, I would call suppression. If you want to say everyone's suppressing information, all of that, well, okay, congratulations. You've now opened yourself to those allegations. So here's the fundamentals of the lost high technology, ancient lost high technology argument presented by the likes of Brian Foster. It's impossible to do, therefore it must be lost high technology. Though if it is possible to do, then there is no evidence for lost high technology. And that is why it is so important for these particular people never to cover the simple facts of quarry work that have been done before diamond tools were around, which includes exquisite work in granite, which can be found here in Sydney as well, before diamond tools were created, and before they become widely used as well. There's still a big difference between when they were first invented and when they become widely used, but it's irrelevant to the point that the granite work, which has been done for centuries and centuries before diamond tip tools, exists. And not to include it, I would call that active suppression. I would call that suppression of history to promote business models and to milk people of their money. Thousands and thousands of dollars people are paying to be taken on these tours and to be presented with demonstrably false information. There's a fine line, because if you genuinely believe it, that's not fraud. But there's a very fine line there. There's a very fine line, and as close to the definition of fraud, I would call that, because I find it very hard to accept, given the time, the money, and the resources that these particular individuals have, that they could not have found this information. I found it. I mean, it really is just like search engine stuff, and start looking around. Now, it might involve reading like a whole page of information rather than copy pasting a quote from there. So anyway, but it's anytime I would please, post it on your I won't even post it on mine. Post it on your channel, and you can get the revenue from that, because that seems to be what's your driving impulse. It's not truth. You don't call yourself a truth seeker. You have an agenda, a very, very clear agenda, and follow the money, as they say, and follow the links to nefarious groups who have been promoting this since the time of Alice Bailey and Blavatsky. Cults such as Anne Hamilton Byrne, the family. Where did that start? Right here in this same type of argument.